Imagine, just for a second, that someone was assigned to literally follow you around for exactly 1 week. I mean, they are watching your every single move. They observe how you handle that stressful morning commute, how you talk to your family at the end of a long day, how you react to a really frustrating email, and, maybe most importantly, what you do when you think absolutely no one is looking. Based purely on that observation, what exactly would they see? Would they recognize Jesus in you? It's a pretty heavy question, I know, but it's exactly where the source material we're unpacking in today's explainer begins. It totally forces us to look way past what we just say about ourselves and actually examine what our everyday lives reveal.
Okay, let's dive into this. The text immediately draws a super sharp line between two very different types of evidence. On one side, we have superficial markers. These are the easy things: wearing a cross necklace, slapping Christian in your social media bio, posting a daily Bible verse online. And hey, there's absolutely nothing wrong with those things, but the text points out that they don't actually prove any real internal transformation. On the flip side, we have the real markers. These are the things you honestly just can't fake for very long. It's your attitude on a truly terrible day. It's the genuine love you show to, well, really difficult people. It's your response when someone deeply hurts you, or how you behave when the doors are closed and nobody is watching. These are the markers that truly reflect your character.
And that right there brings us to the core concept of today's explainer, a phenomenon the text identifies as the Jesus effect. I absolutely love exploring this concept because it argues that this specific effect is literally the single greatest piece of evidence someone has truly been walking with Christ. It's not about holding a specific certificate, and it's certainly not about having a perfect attendance record at a church building. No, it is a visible, undeniable change in a human being. So let's get into section 1. What is the Jesus effect? Beyond superficial faith. Basically, the Jesus effect is defined as a progressive, visible change in a person's character and behavior. The underlying rule here is remarkably simple but profoundly deep. People who spend time with Jesus never stay the same. It's actually considered an impossibility in the framework of the source text. True faith, according to this concept, is always accompanied by real, visible transformation. It's an internal shift that creates a totally undeniable external reality.
Which brings us to section 2, the ordinary disciples, flawed beginnings.
Now, to prove this isn't just some modern psychological theory, the source actually guides us back in time. We're going to look at the historical baseline of the very first people to ever experience this effect. Today, our public perception of these men is that they were these unshakable spiritual giants. We paint them in stained glass, we put glowing halos around their heads. But the historical reality presented in the text, it is drastically different. They were incredibly ordinary. I mean, they were just fishermen pulling in dirty nets. They were tax collectors dealing with coins. They were guys riddled with very real fears, glaring weaknesses, and honestly, a remarkable capacity to mess things up. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is if you look at the specific track record of these individuals before the effect fully took hold, it's pretty messy. Peter literally denied even knowing Jesus when the pressure got turned up. Thomas famously doubted the entire resurrection. James and John, they had these intense struggles with their own egos and pride. The text makes such a powerful point here. Jesus did not choose these men because they were already these transformed spiritual giants. He chose them specifically because he intended to transform them. Moving right along to section 3, the moment everyone noticed, from fear to boldness. So, if they started out flawed, fearful, and, totally ordinary, when exactly did the shift happen? Let's look at the exact historical turning point where this internal transformation became absolutely undeniable to the public eye. The source highlights this incredible moment from Acts chapter 4, verse 13. Read this with me. When they saw the courage of Peter and John and realized that they were unschooled, ordinary men, they were astonished and recognized that they had been with Jesus. Let that sink in for just a second. The greatest thing anyone could say about them. They recognized that they had been with Jesus. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the transformation. Just look at the before and after here. The exact same men who were once running in absolute terror and actively denying Christ were now standing with unwavering boldness. They were preaching publicly to the very same people who could literally have them killed. The text points out something fascinating about this. The religious leaders observing them, they didn't say, "Wow, they must have gone to the best schools," or "Look at these impressive public speaking credentials." They didn't even credit natural talent. They saw unschooled, ordinary men doing extraordinary things, and the only logical conclusion they could possibly draw was the Jesus effect. Let's move to section 4,
and see how this builds into how it changes us today, a modern application. Because the source material insists this wasn't just some isolated historical event for a few fishermen. We need to look at our modern reality. When someone genuinely walks with Jesus today, the text outlines that the fundamental pillars of their life undergo a massive, seismic shift. Their core character begins to change, their everyday priorities completely rearrange themselves, the very speech they use, the actual words coming out of their mouths shift, and perhaps most tellingly of all, their reactions change. The way they instinctively respond to stress, to sudden anger, or to unfairness, it's just no longer the same. But hey, the source offers a really vital reassurance here, so don't stress if you aren't perfect. The process follows a very specific sequence. Step 1, it does not happen overnight. Step 2, it does not happen perfectly. Step 3, but it does happen progressively. It is a continuous, ongoing journey of spiritual growth. Remember, it's not about instant perfection, it's about a steady forward direction. And as this progressive journey continues, the Holy Spirit is actively working within the person, developing very specific, tangible traits. You become more loving. You become noticeably more patient with the people around you, especially the annoying ones. You're quicker to forgive. You become deeply humble. In short, you just become more like Christ. And exactly like with Peter and John, as these traits grow and compound, the people around the believer will inevitably begin to notice the change. It's like a light in a dark room. It literally cannot be hidden. And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Your Life as a Testimony. The ultimate proof. So, if the Jesus effect is real, what is the ultimate point of it all? Well, the source argues that the ultimate goal of a believer is not just to acquire head knowledge about Jesus, but to actually become like him. So the crucial point is summarized perfectly in this quote directly from Jesus in John 13:35. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. It's so simple, right? Our greatest testimony isn't some clever theological argument. It's not merely what we say on a Sunday. It is entirely about how we live our lives and how we love others on a Tuesday. The world sees Christ in us through visible, everyday, boots-on-the-ground actions. It's through our random kindness to strangers. It's through our unwavering integrity at our jobs, through deep compassion for the broken, through our steadfast faithfulness to our commitments. And, circling all the way back to the very beginning of this explainer, it's through how we treat others when nobody else is watching. I want you to imagine the legacy of having people look at your life, the way you live and breathe, and saying exactly what they said about Peter and John. They have been with Jesus. Man, what an absolutely incredible compliment that would be.
So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with the exact challenge the source text presents. I want you to think about the week ahead of you. Think about the random interactions you're going to have, the inevitable frustrations you'll face, the quiet, unseen moments you'll experience. And ask yourself this: when people watch my life, do they see more of me or do they see more of Jesus? Because the closer you walk with him, the more visible his presence becomes. That, my friends, is the Jesus effect. Thanks so much for learning with me today. I'll catch you in the next one.